What's up, pumpers? Jerome here with another TBC video. Today we're going to be talking about the absolute best key bindings for Classic and the Burning Crusade. If you like the video, please give the video a like, hit the subscription button and that notification bell so I can keep coming out with more videos just like this one.
You are not prepared!
Before we get into what the absolute best key bindings for Classic and the Burning Crusade are, I wanted to cover a couple reasons why you need to be using better key bindings, what you need to get out of your key bindings. So number one, you need accessibility. You need the ability to click buttons quickly without any mistakes, and you need to be able to easily reach every single key, no matter your hand size. So obviously there will be some tailoring here depending on your hand size. You need to be able to hit everything quickly and easily and without thinking about it very much. Number two, we need universal or portability for our key bindings. We need the ability to switch between characters and not really struggle at all. This is a very, very, very important point. This is why I changed my key bindings. I was not using a universal setup, and this was a big problem when I went from my warrior to my resto druid, or I wanted to make a new character or try a rogue for the first time. It was a nightmare because I had my warrior all set up perfectly. My warrior probably had like 50 key bindings. I was pressing every dang key. I was pressing Y, I was pressing X and Z and tab and caps lock and every single button. And it wasn't very universal. I didn't really know how to set it up quickly on the fly. I couldn't do it quickly. I couldn't remember which key was doing what. And with the new setup, I'll be showing you, it's really, really, really easy. It'll take you maybe 2 minutes to set up instead of, 20 minutes to an hour. And you'll know exactly where everything is. And the logic behind it should make a ton of sense. Another very, very, very important reason to improve your key bindings is ergonomics. This is very, very, very key, especially if you're streaming, especially if you're playing a lot. The more you play, the more you're going to have injuries add up. I know that sounds silly, but if you're, getting up there in age, the way, hey, I'm getting up there, I'm no spring chicken anymore. And it does hurt to play a long, long, long time now. And making sure you have ergonomics is very important. And when I say ergonomics, there's not a ton you can do on the keyboard side of things. But if you have an MMO mouse on the side, this is a game changer because you can essentially play with one hand and switch hands. You could play all left-handed, you could play all right-handed, and that's absolutely genius. So if you're using a Razer, Naga, or a Corsair Scimitar, for example, and there are a couple other options as well, you can literally play with just one hand, and that is absolutely fantastic. That's one of the biggest reasons to set up your key bindings the way I'm doing it. This is going to allow you incredible ergonomics. I'll get into why and how this works in a little bit, but the important thing to note is if you're going to be playing a lot, you really start to have to think about making sure you're not playing and causing long-term pain, and that's something on the top of my mind all the time. Another very important thing to note about your key binding setup is making sure you have enough buttons. And when I say enough buttons, I mean you're going to need a lot of keys if you're playing serious PvP in WoW. If you're doing serious PvE, there's going to be so many buttons for so many abilities and skills and items, and everything needs to be taken care of. With my setup, you're getting a minimum of 48 buttons. That is absolutely huge, and you can even add more if you need to. And it's all very ergonomic. So honestly, this is very, very important to think about, is having enough keys, making sure you don't end up how my warrior did, where I was pressing V and X and Y and P and Q and everything. I mean, hey, some of those keys are good, but it can be a real mess, and remembering which key is which can be a real hassle. With the key binding setup, I'm going to show you it will no longer ever be a concern for you. Okay, so now we're over at the key binding interface. I want to show you all of my key bindings. So we're going to start off, we have 1 through 5, as you can see on the screen. I believe going any further than 5 is pushing a little bit too far. This is basically the most numbers you want to go. Some people use 6, some people even use 7. I believe 1 through 5 is optimal. After that, we have R, F, T, G, and caps lock, as well as Q and E. So you're probably thinking a couple of these keys are weird. The number one for me, caps lock. So a lot of people, I would say, would use tilde, but for whatever reason, I've used that as a Discord bind for a long time. So I end up using caps lock instead of tilde. However, I would say tilde probably the optimal bind here. So if you look at all these keys, they're all really, really, really close to your movement keys, which is important. There's not a lot of moving your hand at all. In fact, your hand doesn't have to move even a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. The key here, and the very, very important key, is organizing your skills based on what is the easiest to reach. So pretty much universally, everyone will want to have 4 as their most heavily used skill. This is, for whatever reason, your hand just kind of, the way it rests on the keyboard, 4 is going to be the easiest to reach. And other keys as well. I mean, you have keys like R and F that are really, really easy to get to. T is easy to get to. G as well. And you can basically reach everything with one hand without moving at all. As you can see, we have 12 different keys set up, which is very important. And now you go to the multi-action bar. Here's where it gets really interesting. On the multi-action bar, we are copying every single thing with a shift modifier. So we're going shift 1, shift 2, shift 3, shift 4, shift 5, just like the initial setup. And then we have shift R, F, T, G, caps lock, Q, E. Again, caps lock could be tilde, no problem. It would be just as good. And then we go down, we have another setup. We have control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, R, F, T, G, caps lock, Q, E. And then we have alt 1 through 5, and then R, F, T, G, caps lock, Q, E. So again, everything is mirrored. This gives you 4 by 12 mirrored setup. So essentially, you have everything set up 4 ways identically. This means it's really, really, really easy to switch to a new character, for example. I just know the exact 12 keys that I want to set up, and then I set the modifiers in the other action bars. And it's really, really, really simple. It's mirrored across the board. There is no variation. All you have to do from now and this point forward is figure out which keys are the easiest for you to press from this combination and which ones are the most annoying and hard to reach. And the ones that are annoying and hard to reach, those get your least used things. For example, maybe your drink button, or something you're not going to use very often, a 30-minute cooldown. Whereas the most important things that you're using all the time, get those easiest to reach keys, the ones and your easiest to reach fingers. So this is a very, 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 very simple setup. It gives you a mirrored 48 keys, and that is absolutely massive. If you think about it, you're getting 12 ergonomic keys. These are all very ergonomic. You're no longer pressing random keys. That being said, you could still add in other keys as long as they follow the same principle. So for example, Y might be very easy for you to access. It's worth adding in if you need a couple extra keys. Anything that's kind of nearby the vicinity. And ideally, we want to keep the 12 keys as our kind of our maximum here, because we're going to be using an MMO mouse as well. Now that we've covered the basics of why we're doing the 12 key setup and how to make it a 48 key setup very, very, very seamlessly, I wanted to cover what exactly we're going to be doing with this setup. So basically, we're going to be using an MMO mouse on the side as well. A Corsair Scimitar or a Razer Naga. Of course, I am Razer sponsored, so I would definitely go with that Razer for sure. And basically, your idea here is you can set up everything on the MMO mouse and have your 12 keys, and then all you got to do is press a modifier key, and you can basically play one-handed. So you could be running flags as a druid in Warsong for 18 hours a day and not have horrible arm pain. You could be doing battlegrounds, you could be doing arenas, and even play one-handed without really losing any mobility, any skill. And that is absolutely massive, especially with the Classic Fresh coming. People are going to be playing so many long hours, and it's so important. Ergonomics are such an important thing. It's not a young man's game, but long-term, you are going to want to have those ergonomics. Playing with an MMO mouse is so important. You're not going to need it all the time, but having the option is important. Being able to press certain buttons with your right hand. Let me give you an example. Right now, I am playing with the MMO mouse. My hand is currently up. As you can see, I can press Light Bloom on myself. I can press Tranquility here. Boom. I could press Fairy Fire on this mob here. Boom. Once I'm in range, of course. I got Fairy Fire and boom. I could run away. I can do basically anything I would want to do normal. I could travel form and run away. My hand is still up, and I'm playing one-handed. I can still move the camera. I could have my hand up here. This is the key setup here. And if you want to use a modifier, let's say you want to use shift for whatever reason or control, you could easily press the modifier as well. And this is the ergonomic heaven. This is the kind of thing that in the future every gamer is going to want to do because it is such a logical solution. Look at this. My hand is still up. I am moving around. I can go out of travel form. I could press a regrowth if I wanted. I could press a light bloom if I wanted. So as you can see, it's very, very, very nice to have ergonomics and play with one hand. Sometimes you got to switch it up. And maybe I just want to play with my keyboard right now. My hand's up over here. This arm is hurting for whatever reason. I got, a little bit of back pain. I'm going to lean back like this, right? I could play like this pretty comfortable. I'm pressing travel form. I'm pressing light bloom. I could move the camera a little bit, and we're good to go. Let's say I want to go travel form, right? I want to fly. So boom, just like that. Now I'm flying because I pressed the control modifier. I did that with one hand, basically, and I just pressed the control modifier with my left hand. Super, super, super easy. Of course, you won't have to set up the software, and there are a bunch of guides. I will link to 2 guides to set up your MMO mice, depending on which brand you go with. Of course, I recommend the Razer for legal reasons and quality, of course. But the important thing to note is MMO mice will save your arm long-term, you save your hand long-term, because you are going to get a lot less pressure, a lot less stress if you can switch between your hand on the left and your hand on the right and kind of relax one of the two. Long-term, I think this will lead to a lot less pain and suffering for you if you are able to switch between your hands Of course, I'm not trying to sell you a mouse here right now, but it's important to note that if you have a little bit of pain, the only way it's going to heal up is if you stop doing the thing that's causing the pain. And I wouldn't want you to have to stop playing WoW, okay? I don't want you to have to quit the game just because you got pain. I want you to have a solution, and this is a very, very good one. All right, so we've covered the basics. You've got your 12 buttons. You've got your shift modifier. You've got your control modifier, your alt modifier. Where are you going to put your skills? So this is going to vary from person to person, and it's going to vary from class to class. But I would argue there is a correct setup for every single class. Now, I am not by any stretch claiming that this druid setup, for example, is 100% perfect, but I do believe the basics behind it are 100% perfect. And you could take this concept and make it 100% perfect for your class. So the general rule here is it should be played logically, right? Every skill should be in a logical position. So if you have, for example, a very, 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 very high use skill, it should be considered to be put in the most high activity spot. So let's say 4. I would say 4 is the number one spot for me to press. It's used by this finger here. So this finger, very easy for me to press things with. Boom, I'm life blooming, life blooming, life blooming. So I would say this is in the correct spot. So now you just got to go through every single skill and figure out which spot feels right for each skill. And ideally, there should be a logic behind it as well. It shouldn't just be random skill positions. It should be based on skill usage. It should be based on what you're going to be pressing the most and what is the easiest and hardest to access buttons. Now, one thing you may notice with my trinkets, I have trinkets on Alt F and Alt R. A little bit weird maybe, but here's the thing. They weirdly are very, very, very ergonomic for me. Pressing Alt F is easy for me. Pressing these buttons is easy. So sometimes a button combination you may think is very hard is very, very simple, especially when you have the MMO mouse as an option as well. Sometimes a button that may not seem easy to press becomes very easy. And let me tell you, these 12 keys are all very, very, very easy to press. Of course, I still use caps lock instead of tilde, but watch this. I mean, see how easy it is. I can press caps lock. I could press alt caps lock if I needed to. Like, I can press pretty much anything I need to. And it's very, very ergonomic. It all makes a ton of sense to me. I've only been using this setup for maybe 4 months, and I can tell you my gameplay has improved tremendously. I am pushing 2K in arenas, despite having never done arenas before. We are, just performing a lot better than I used to. I'm becoming a much better player. The key bindings are important. You don't want to have to constantly second guess your key bindings. And that's something I was dealing with on my warrior. It was always like, okay, do I have these in the right spot? And then I'd add a new skill in. That's very, very annoying when you have to add in new skills constantly and you're not sure where to put them. It feels really bad to have to create a new key binding out of nothing. That's always a terrible feeling. So in my opinion, it's great to have a setup you can be confident in and you can know is ready for your expansion. And honestly, this is the setup. This is the setup you can be confident in. The 12 key setup with the 1 through 5, the RFTG, caps lock QE, or tilde QE is such a great combination of keys. And of course, you add in your modifiers, your shift, your control, your alt, and boom, all of a sudden you've got 48 keys to work with, and you'll work them with your MMO mouse as well, and you will be off to business. One little tidbit you may be wondering the answer to is, why do I have duplicates of all my skills on my bar? This is a druid specific thing. This will not apply to your class most likely, but on the druid I have duplicates so I can cast spells in form. So let's say I go into my cat form. I want to press life bloom. Boom. I just use a shift modifier. Everything is 1-to-1 duplicate with shift, and so I have the same 1 through 12 all completely set up. So I have, 1 through 5, RFTG, caps lock QE, and then I have shift 1 through 5, RFTG, caps lock QE. And so let's say I want to do, I want to go bear form, and then I got to stomp out of it. Boom. I can press shift caps lock just like that. Boom. So this is the best possible way to play Resto Druid, or any sort of Druid where you have to swap out of form and cast spells. I think it's the absolute best way to go. I could do shift regrowth right now. I could go in the bear form and then shift regrowth, and it works exactly the same way. I don't even have to think about it. It's completely seamless. I didn't even look at the screen. I knew it would work, and that's exactly why I do it on the Resto Druid. To recap, why is this the best possible key binding setup? It's really easy to set up. So let's say there's a new fresh classic launch and all your character details are wiped. I could be up and running and completely logically have my key binding set up and all of my skills set up in a minute or 2 minutes. And you might be on a warrior, for example, still struggling 10 levels in to figure out where the heck some of your skills are supposed to go. You may need to look at reference images. When I first started playing the classic TBC beta, I had to look at reference images of my warrior to set up my key bindings. That's no good. You should have it memorized. How are you going to set it up? It should be seamless and obvious and really, really, really easy. Ergonomics are another key, of course. You don't want to be playing with pain. And if you have pain and it's your job to play WoW, for example, or you just love playing WoW so much you don't want to stop, you're going to need to deal with that pain. And the best way is to stop doing what causes the pain. You got to take breaks. If this hand hurts, I got to stop using it. If this arm hurts, I got to stop using it. I got to relax. I got to give it, a little stretch. And that's very, very important. And you can't do that with most key binding setups. If you have an MMO mouse, it's super seamless, super obvious. It's really, really, really important you have an ergonomic setup that makes sense and mirrors off to the MMO mouse and mirrors back and is easy to set up. And this is why I believe this is the best possible key binding setup and why you should switch to it as soon as you can. Of course, for each class, it's going to vary where you put the skills, and it could even vary based on your own personal preference. But the idea remains sound. The backbone of this whole idea is very logical, and you should absolutely do it. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you think you have a better keybind setup than I do. Please tell me everything about it. I want to know what makes it better, what makes it more ergonomic and more seamless and easy to set up and use and easy to remember. Please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.